Listening Masterclass. In this session, our goal is to understand what we can do to improve our overall listening score. And for that, we'll look at the fundamentals, the basics, the qualities that make good listening, and the skills that we need to work upon to improve our listening skills. When we work on the fundamentals, everything else, including the score, will improve. Let's begin with a basic question that we ask ourselves in all of these masterclasses. So, why do we listen? And the answer is simple. We listen because we want to understand something. We go to a class or a lecture because we want to get some information on a particular topic, because we are studying something. We attend a meeting because we want to know something about a project. So we want to understand things. That's why we listen. And there's a difference between listening and hearing. Listening is hearing and understanding. So we can hear as much as we want to, but we might not understand it at all. So that's not what I will call listening. So when listening is when you pay attention, when you try to understand what the other person is saying. So once you hear, you process it and you understand it. That is effective listening. The common problems that students report when they prepare for an exam like PTE, common problems related to listening. One of them, the first one is not recognizing words. So they say that they listen something, but they just don't know the words. And when that's the case, then of course it will become very difficult to understand anything. The other common problem is falling behind. So you're listening to the news and the news speaker is speaking at his or her own pace. But because your listening skills are poor, you're not able to follow the news reader and you fall behind. So we're still processing the first news while the news reader, the speaker, has moved on to news number 4. So that's a big problem. And there are a number of questions in the listening section of PTE which require us that we follow along questions in which we will have to read and listen at the same time. So it's important that we don't fall behind, that we are able to follow when a speaker is talking at a reasonable speed. The other big problem is not remembering afterwards. So we're able to listen and we think the words seem familiar and all of that, but once it's over and we ask ourselves, what have we understood? Or if somebody asks us to repeat what we have heard, we are not able to remember. We don't remember everything. So that's a big problem. And the other big problem is not able to form connections. So when somebody is talking, for example, in the news, and they are describing an event, something that happened in the city today, and they talk about it for 3 minutes. In those 3 minutes, they will cover different aspects. What happened, where it happened, who were involved, why that particular thing was done, what are the repercussions of that, what the police did, what will happen later on, and all of those things. A lot of people, especially those whose language skills are not that advanced or that good, they're not able to form those connections. They can understand individual sentences. They can understand when they hear something which is small, a few sentences, but when they hear a large audio, they're not able to form connections. So these problems, these are big factors, and these are the kind of skills you need to overcome these problems, because in most of the listening questions, you will be required to do all of those things. And the biggest technique that I have for you, which will help you to understand, which will help you to remember. So we are going to look at that. And the biggest technique that I think is very effective, the most effective technique, that is visualization. So you form a picture in your mind. You actively engage with what you are listening and with whatever is your ears are picking up. So whatever they're picking up, you assign some kind of a visual clue to it. You assign something that helps you remember, helps you form a picture. Because human beings, the things that we have seen, we always find it easier to remember. So if you assign some visual clues to what you are listening, to the information that's coming your way, it becomes much easier to remember. And then when you are asked to respond to a question based on that, then all you have to do is you have to sort of just look at that picture and you can answer. The answer is right there in the picture. So it all becomes very easy. Let's look at an example. I'll play an audio, and what you have to do while listening to the audio, try to assign some visual clues to it.
And within 15 years of discovering the electron, these X-rays were being used to make images inside the human body, helping soldiers lives being saved by surgeons who could then find pieces of bullets and shrapnel inside their bodies. But there's no way we could have come up with that technology by asking scientists to build better surgical probes. Only research done out of sheer curiosity with no application in mind could have given us the discovery of the electron and X-rays. Now, this tube also threw open the gates for our understanding of the universe and the field of particle physics, because it's also the first very simple particle accelerator. Now, I'm an accelerator physicist, so I design particle accelerators and I try and understand how beams behave. And my field's a bit unusual because it crosses between curiosity-driven research and technology with real-world applications. But it's the combination of those two things that gets me really excited about what I do. Now, over the last 100 years, there have been far too many examples for me to list them all, but I want to share with you just a few.
All right, let's see what kind of visual clues were you able to assign. What's the picture or the pictures in your mind? These are some of the ones that I would have if I was listening to this. So they mentioned X-rays, they talked about soldiers. So, and as you can see, there are different ways, there are different things, there are different ways that you can remember. So there are different visual clues that you can assign. What I might assign, you might assign it differently. So this is the kind of picture that comes into my mind when I think of an X-ray. But for you, when you talk about X-rays or rays or things like that, you might see an X-ray machine or the office of a radiologist. As long as there's a reference that your mind understands, that's fine. Because this is not something that you will submit as it is. Nobody's going to look at it. This is only there to help you remember. So practice this. When you do the practice questions, try to visualize. And every day for 10-15 minutes, just put on an academic lecture, close your eyes. Don't see what's there on the screen. Listen to a podcast. Close your eyes, and as you're listening, try to see it in your mind, what comes. That's how you'll be able to develop this skill. You'll be able to work on this skill. Now, the other very important, very fundamental skill that I'm going to talk about is taking notes, which essentially means writing key points as an aid to remember. And I'm sure you all are familiar with what note-taking is. In your school, in college, university, even when attending meetings at work, we write down important points. We make a note of the action items coming out of that meeting or anything that we think is of value to us. That is essentially note-taking. All right? It's not dictation. So we don't try to write down each and every word that the person is speaking. Many people think that is note-taking. No, that will be a big mistake if you try to do that. That is not note-taking. You only need to write down the key points, or even sometimes you don't have to write full words. Whatever clues you write down, you can even draw a picture and connect some words. That's also a form of note-taking. You might have seen some colleagues, or maybe you yourself do that, what we call scribbling or doodling on notebooks, in their notebooks. So there are different ways that you can write it down. It's not that you always have to write down full words or sentences, maybe an abbreviated form of a word, and then you connect different words together, or you write, maybe there's a central idea. So for that, you write a word in the center, and then all the other important things you write as words around them and somehow draw arrows between them showing which point is linked to which point. So that's all up to you. But the idea is that we write down key points. We'll again look at this as an example. So I'll play this audio and then I'll show you my notes and we'll see, you can compare it with what you have written.
I spent 10 years as a diplomat, working as a diplomat, and then I became an elite athlete. So I'm not sure quite how PPE led to that, but I think the value of an Oxford education is not so much in what you learn, but how you learn and the skills that you learn. So, for example, writing an essay, I was writing 2 essays a week, doing all the research for it, and so assimilating a lot of information, distilling the key points from that, being able to argue your point. Those sorts of skills I think are incredibly useful and what I really am grateful for now.
And aside from your studies, what else did you enjoy at Oxford?
I did a lot of running while I was in Oxford, so I was a member of the Oxford University Cross Country Club. Had a terrific time training with my friends there, going to races, competing in the varsity match, the national students race, and so on. I guess the social side of being a student.
Let me show you what I wrote down, how I took my notes. This is what I have. So you see, I wrote down 10 years. I didn't write the full words. I just wrote 1, 0 and Y for years. Diplomat, I thought that was important, so I wrote it. Oxford, I just wrote as OXFD. And then I drew an arrow from Oxford and I said running. What kind of running? Cross country. How have I written cross country? So cross just as a cross. And then I just wrote CONTY to remind me that it means country. So when I see cross, I'll be able to say, yes, this is cross-country matches. And then Oxford diplomat from that, because she says that she was a diplomat and then she became an athlete. So I drew an arrow from diplomat and towards athlete. So you see, the way I've written, it's very abbreviated. It makes sense to me because I'm also paying attention to it. So if you just show this to somebody, they might say 10Y. What is 10Y? But because I've heard about it, then my mind will be able to recollect it that this is 10 years. And X, and when they say X, I'll be able to, we're talking about running. So it will immediately come to my mind that X means cross country. Yeah. So that's how you take notes. You don't have to write down full words. Don't have to write down full sentences. In your own way, you have to write it. As long as you can later on, when you read it, it helps you to remember. That's all we need. That's all that's important. Now let's look at some common mistakes that people make and how we can avoid those. So as I've been saying earlier, don't treat this like dictation. It's note-taking. It's not dictation. If you try to write down the whole sentence or you try to write down everything the speaker is saying, then you'll not be able to understand anything at all. The focus always have to be on understanding, and then when you hear something which sounds important, you note it down. And as I said, this is the both note-taking as well as visualization. That is only for you. These are aids to help you understand and remember. So do them in a way that is easier for you, that makes sense to you. And make sure that you don't fall behind while listening. So let's say you're taking notes, but you notice that the speaker has gone ahead to the next point. And stop taking notes. Start paying attention to what the speaker is saying. Pay attention. Take your attention back to listening. That's why if you do the first point that you don't treat this like dictation, then the third point won't happen. So let's sum it up. The key things that we looked at. So you can improve your listening by visualization, and you must learn to take notes. And the other thing that I want you to do is listen to a variety of English audio every day. And needless to say, by this point in the course, whenever I'm talking to any practice materials, I'm referring to academic practice materials. So when you listen to this English audios, they have to be from universities, they have to be from some podcasts. Don't listen to any garbage from anywhere. Okay, don't listen to entertainment news or movie news. Stay away from all of that. The next steps for you have to figure out your own note-taking technique. That's very important. You can do it when you do the practice questions. So see how best you can. It's sort of a combination. You want to keep it abbreviated. You want to keep it short, or not so short. Then later on when you look at it, you yourself can't make sense of it. So you have to figure out a balance. And that will happen with trial and error. So do that. Then practice visualization and answering based on the visualized picture. So as I said, in your daily routine, for 10 minutes when you are closing your eyes and listening to a podcast, at the end, ask yourselves, what have I really understood? What's this about? And then on the basis of what you see in your mind, the way you try to visualize, try to answer those questions. And fix some time, maybe 15-20 minutes every day to work on these things. Finally, and very useful point, if you get an opportunity to interact with native language speakers, participate in discussions, attend lectures, if you are already studying or working in an English language environment, then please immerse yourself. So it's all about listening, speaking, these skills especially, they kind of work at your subconscious level. If you listen, if you speak, immerse yourself in an that environment for, let's say, 100 days, you'll automatically see that you're talking the same way, and it has become much easier for you to listen to the things with which you struggled earlier. So immerse yourself, take every opportunity to practice your skills. That's it. I hope you take out time to work on these fundamentals, because once you address these couple of things, answering all those questions will become very easy for you.